35% of women of color in leadership roles report higher levels of burnout than their white women peers. Women leaders in general are 43% more burnt out than men at 31%. So 31% of men are burnt out at leadership roles, but 43, almost half. That's a lot. That's a lot.
And it definitely shows that there's a gender issue within burnout.
Yes.
Welcome to Right There With You, where we lean into life's biggest questions, challenge what we know, and discover the strength we've had.
This is my dear friend and co-host, Ciarra Jones, theologian and lifelong explorer of faith, identity, and purpose.
And say hello to my co-host and buddy, Cass Cooper, a professional chaos whisperer who loves untangling the complexity of human relationships.
Here we embrace the journey, no matter how uncertain, messy, or transformative it gets.
And no matter where you are on yours, we're right there with you.
Y'all, welcome back to Right There With You, the podcast where spirit, strategy, and softness collide. My name is Ciarra.
And I'm Cass, and today we're diving into something that feels like it's chasing every single one of us today, which is burnout. But not just burnout, Black women specifically, and burnout. We're naming names today. We're calling things for what they are.
I love that because as you and I know, Cass, the Black woman trope is great. The strong Black woman trope is great until you're crying in your car, calling your friends, and just feeling all in all unraveled. So let's talk about, what it looks like to combat burnout and how to be gentle with ourselves when we're navigating it.
Yeah, the crying in your car thing is so real. And I think one thing, because listen, we've all been there. We've all had those times where you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What is the motivation? Am I making these choices because I feel like I have to or because I actually want to? But I think it's really important to realize that like burnout is more than just being tired, because everybody gets tired, right? Sometimes it's because of lack of sleep. It's because you just have like a stressor in your life. Maybe you're going through a transition, you have client needs, all those things. And sometimes it's getting really just exhausted, right? So I like to think of it as 3 different levels. Like there's tired, which is like a temporary thing that I can fix by having, more sleep, right? Like I wasn't able to sleep one night before. So tonight I'm going to go to bed early, and wake up at my normal time, and I'm up and I'm refreshed, right? As opposed to being exhausted, which is maybe I have a consecutive few weeks or I went on some work travel and I get back and I need some restorative time to be rested and move from that exhaustion to tired to actual rested, right? So, but then when we talk about burnout is, it does have a clinical definition, right? It's chronic, meaning it's long lasting. So it's long bouts and long term, how do I want to say it? It's long bouts and long term exhaustion, right? So it's feeling exhausted, feeling that tired, and never really being able to recover that time in your body and in your spirit and your mind of being restful. Right. So, and it can show up in different people in different ways. I think that's really important to look at. And so it's not just about this like feeling of physical tired, it's spiritual tired, it's having lack of soul work, it's having a sense of I will never be able to get out of this no matter how much sleep I have. And then we can talk about this a little bit, but in my keynote that I just did the other day, one of the things I talked about is how...
You got to explain. You did a keynote on burnout.
I did. So I do these interactive keynotes and workshops, and, the keynotes are easy because you're just kind of talking at people, but the workshops are actually really fun because you get an opportunity to engage with people and kind of see where folks are. And there's this really cool synergetic moment where people get to talk to each other, especially in a corporate environment. So much of the interactions are transactional. And this is where you get to kind of talk about connection and building connectedness across departments and teams. It was a group of women, and the symposium was about Women's Health Month. And so it was all these different speakers, and I got to be able to, talk with some people. So shout out to Schneider Electric. It was great spending time with you. And it's really interesting too, because a lot of the women in the room are project managers, they're engineers. And so there's not a lot of space culturally built in for them to express these deep emotions and experiences. So it's really cool.
And
Yeah.
I guess there's something I want to know is, why was it important for you in that space to educate on burnout particularly? Like, why is that a area of passion for you? And if you have someone in your life, someone, or even people that are listening to this pod, how can they know when they're crossing into burnout? And you've already named
Yeah.
some of the things. It's different than fatigue. There might even be a spiritual component to kind of just feeling a hopelessness or
Yeah.
a lack of belief and ability to change a circumstance because you're feeling so tired. You're kind of in this hole. But yeah, why is this area important for you? And yeah, how do people know when they're kind of crossing into that space?
So it's important for me because I am recovering from burnout,
Mm,
right? So, part of my story is when the pandemic happened. So had just landed this great job. I was doing sales, and I was doing all these things. I was traveling. Not only had I landed a great job, I had gotten like a $50,000 like bump. Like it was
mm,
a life-changing thing. I had just closed on my house. I was so excited. I was all these things, and I was just ready to take a couple of days off and jump into my new job. Well, so I got the job at the beginning of January 2020, closed on the house February, like middle of February 2020. And then my first day at my new job was March 16th, 2020, which was the first day of shelter in place. And so when I got to March 16th, I was like, oh, this is fine. I don't have to travel. I still get to keep my job. I'm doing all these things. I can't wait to sit at home for 6 or 8 weeks and just chill out and be able to unpack my house and be comfortable. And I quickly realized through my behavior, the not having to go, 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 I was sleeping a lot.
mm,
Not to the point of like depressed sleeping where I was sad, but I just could not feel rested. I would sleep for like 10 hours and I'd wake up and I'd still be tired.
mm,
Or I would sleep for those 10 hours. I'd wake up, do a couple of things, and then just like have to sit down and then wake up again, like fall asleep on my couch. I could not recover from my life, right?
mm, mm,
And I think at that time, a lot of us just thought like, oh, it's not going to be very long. But as time went on, I had to do something else to fill that time. The time where I
mm,
would be on a plane traveling, or I would be entertaining clients, or whatever that looked like. I had to fill it with something else. And so I started journaling a lot, reading a lot, talking with my therapist more often. And really, it gave me an opportunity to identify that I was extremely burnt out. I was burning it on both ends and in the middle and everywhere in between. Like I was really trying to quote unquote have it all, do all the things. And on paper, I did. I had
mm,
the marriage, I had the kid, I had the house, I had the jobby job where I was director level. I was doing all the things on paper, and my life was not my own. I had all these pressures of, I just bought this house. That means we need to live a certain way and it needs to meet this certain aesthetic. Or, my kid is at this age and she needs to have these types of clothes and all this stuff. I am a wife, so I need to make sure I fulfill these roles. And it was just, man, it was killing me, bro. It was not fun
And I
by
think,
any stretch of the imagination.
and something one, thank you for sharing that. And I think something that's interesting when I hear you share this is it makes me think about how we have described, like how maybe part of what a burnout driver is like the constructs we have in our society, the idea of what a fulfilling life is, and the idea that if we're not fulfilled in that context, something's wrong with us versus thinking about, is this life or environment or a way of being healthy for me? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think, like, especially for me, I'm in my early 30s, and there's so many ideas of what this time should be like. And sometimes when I try to fit into those, it does drive fatigue or drive burnout more, which is kind of what I hear.
Yeah.
But also, it sounds like it was actually in slowing down that you were able to see the level of fatigue. Is that right?
Yeah. And so I think had I not had that time, I don't think I would have been able to identify. I would just kept going.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, on paper, my life was great, right? I had all the things. I had the dream. I had set certain goals for myself and I had achieved them all by the time at that time I was 37. So I was like, I had the degree, I had the house, I had all the picket fence, the only thing I didn't have was the 2.5 kids and the dog. I have since gotten a dog. But also, I got the dog because it gives you something to care about that's outside of yourself. That's a whole nother. We can talk about pets and the joy that comes from having a pet. Although she's in timeout right now because she keeps jumping over my fence. But that's a whole nother.
Patch is the cutest dog ever, but she's a bit of a menace, y'all.
Y'all coming. She be menacing. She ate your cheeseburger when you were here, which is crazy.
Did I was staying at Cass's house and I like got tired and then I left the room for 2 seconds, came back, that thing was gone. I was like, is her dog gonna get sick and I'm gonna get sued? Or like I was so scared. I was like Googling, I was like, how much onions on a Big Mac? And like, I was so stressed out. Oh my gosh.
One thing that we don't talk about when we talk about burnout, and I am so adamant about, is that it really is a reflection of our culture. It's not an individual failure, it's a reflection of the pressures that come from the identities that we hold. For me, I was holding on to this strong Black woman trope that we were talking about at the beginning. I was holding on to this, what does it mean to be a good Christian wife? I was holding on to, what does it mean to be the holder of this tiny human and their experience as their mother? When they get older, what kind of mother are they going to remember? And a lot of that stuff was stuff that I did enjoy. Like, I enjoy cooking. I'm the type of chick that I'll make pizza from scratch. Like, I am baking all the breads and I do enjoy that. But I had to really ask myself, am I doing that because that is what is expected of me as a Black femme presenting woman in this heteronormative relationship? Or am I doing that because I actually enjoy it? And here comes my little person. Hold on. Yes, ma'am. We're recording.
We're back. Okay, I think you're talking about drivers of burnout, and I just want to
Yes.
go back to
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
I think I just love that you mentioned like the way that faith can be a part of it. Like we can learn. Like one thing that we talk about a lot too is like perfectionism, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fundamentalist constructs, like theological constructs, can require perfectionistic ideas that we need to renew our mind, renew our body, always be being perfect, moving towards God's perfection. That's already a stressor. The way that women can be oppressed within Christian faith practice can be a stressor, especially with in the ideas of how women should operate in marriage. I know that you were married at the time. And I also think,
Especially the heteronormative part of marriage, because I was raised to be a good wife. Period. That was juxtaposed with, I also have to have my education because I'm a Black woman, right? So it's like, at what cost and whose mental health is more important? Because what I realized is I was burnt out, but he wasn't fine. But on the outside, I'm like dying. Like, I am like, don't like being in the house, during this pandemic time. And,
mm,
but I was still doing all the good wifely things of cooking dinner and making sure the house was clean and, playing praise and worship music and making sure there's this peaceful environment for everyone else around me. But I am in chaos and nobody noticed.
it makes me think a lot about what she says. Is it Audre Lorde or Zora Neale Hurston who says like caring for myself is not an act of indulgence. It's like
It's Audre Lorde.
an act of
Yeah, yeah.
and like and it is for Black women, like caring for yourself is political warfare. And I think what's interesting is you also highlight like that some people might be benefiting from our burnout or fatigue. Some of our relational structures might kind of create that. And so that kind of brings me to, maybe you talk about this in your talk, or maybe this is in your personal journey too, but
Yeah.
what does it look like, if someone's feeling exhausted in their work, if someone's feeling depleted, this chronic fatigue, but they still have to go to work and they still have their family, but they want to start to address some of this, what does it look like for people to slowly combat burnout? And what did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, for me, what it looked like is starting to say no to more things
Mm,
and really being comfortable with other people being uncomfortable with my no. I still struggle with this. This is not something, I think this is going to be a thing that I have to go back and forth with probably for a while in my life. I want to care about what people experience of me, right? And I don't want to be callous to that, but not holding on to it as being solely my responsibility to make sure everybody else around me is okay. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not okay, then what difference does it make if everybody else is? And one thing my dad would always say to me is, who encourages the encourager?
yep.
Like, we have to encourage ourselves. And I think also structurally within Christianity, there's this thing of, well, God will give you encouragement. But if we truly believe that people are the hands and feet of Jesus, let's just really break it down. If people are the hands and feet of Jesus and God is going to give you the things that you need to encourage you, shouldn't people also be structurally empowered to encourage you no
Mm,
matter where you are on that social structure? So if I am doing all the quote unquote things to be a good Christian woman, whatever that looks like, Proverbs 31 woman, where
I'm so sorry. It made me think about every church retreat that I've
I
seen.
know, I'm sorry, trigger warning. I should have said
I'm having like an evangelical flashback to all the freaking
I know. Because listen, it's in me. Like, come on. I went to Catholic University, Catholic high school. I grew up, my parents were Sunday school teachers and a deacon. Um, and I was this close to being on staff at an evangelical non-denominational church. So anyway, what does it look like to not have the structures around you and the people who are supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus actually doing that for you? We put so much emphasis on people in the marginalized and underrepresented groups to fill in these gaps for those who are in power. What is that? Why are we continue doing that?
Yeah.
So if we're supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and like I am working so diligently to be that, who encourages me? Who in my life is doing that for me, and where does that come from? And for me, it really just started with like really saying no to and putting some real structure around, okay, if somebody is upset and I am catering to their upset without catering to myself, like where does that leave me? That only leaves me so much to even do for them also.
Yeah.
So some of the practical things I did is that's when I started Mama Clocks Out at fill in the time. I clock out at 8:30. And I really had to get comfortable with if something isn't done, it's okay. If I'm exhausted tomorrow because I stayed up an extra hour to clean the kitchen, was that worth a clean kitchen? Like, do I have to be the mom who puts her kid to bed every single night? Or is that something her father can do? And I think it helps with setting healthy boundaries and monitoring for my kid. Like, she now is so good at, like, I'm peopled out. I want to go. And I think that started around the time when I was like, I need alone time. I need 30 minutes of quiet, right? I started just really focusing on the things, not that I needed for a better output, but what did I need for internally for me?
For input, like a better internal process.
Yeah. So that was a couple of practical things. And I will say that this is a time that I met you too. And I stumbled across your content and I was like, these are good questions. These are questions that I never really had the space to ask. And so having other people in my ecosystem that were asking these questions as well was also super, super helpful. And finding out, okay, I'm not alone in these challenges, which again points me to they are structural. Because if they were individual, then you would be the only one experiencing it. But we have an endemic of burnout with Black women.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, as you mentioned, like within capitalism, we can have this idea that burnout is part of like success. Like it's already a global idea that like to be successful, there's ways that we need to run ourselves ragged. Like we even valorize that. We valorize a type of fatigue in the name of dreams or money or success. And then, particularly for Black women and women of color more broadly, I guess we see this intensity of gender, hierarchy, power, systemic disenfranchisement. I mean, if you're a Black woman going to the doctor, trying to get proper health care, that could be exhausting in itself. Even getting well can be exhausting. So all that really drives burnout. You made me think not even just about the structural, but also the self-conceptions that can drive burnout too. And I know for me, on top of already being a Black queer woman and being pressed down by systems of oppression, I think one way I've tried to drive my own sense of worthiness is through like productivity and success. And I had my own business for 2 years and now I'm back working full-time and I run my business on the side. And like for the first 3 months, I've been trying to lose nothing in that process. Like I've been like, I'm going to hustle 100% of my business, hustle 100% of my job. But I started to feel like dissociated as I was working or not connected with clients or not connected at work because like one big indicator of burnout is not being able to find joy in what you normally find joy in, only exhaustion. And so it made me realize like I have to build a self-conception outside of achievement. Because when I was trying to take a step back from work, I felt this anxiety of who am I without all this work? And so it also helped me realize that, part of my own burnout is also this deeper connection to perfectionism as a way to insulate my sense of worthiness and this idea of hustle as a way to prove my value to society or to others. So deconstructing that has been helpful for me. And I mentioned I was reading, Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. And something she says is like, thriving should not require exhaustion. She says something I love is like she talks about how achieving our dreams should be easeful. And that was so paradigm shifting for me. I never, ever would have assigned ease to that process. And it's made me
Yeah.
think a lot more about how much I also justify my own suffering in the name of my dreams. And like, I have some deconstructing to do there, you know?
It justifying your suffering in the name, like, because that also goes back to that this life is going to be struggle. That don't
Yes.
worry about the struggles that you're having on this side of, the earth, because your glory is in heaven type shit.
Yes, girl, it is very fundamentalist, right? That yeah, please keep going. That's a
Because
good.
I mean, really, like, and it feeds into each other, right? At the time I stumbled upon a thing, and it was so ironic because I was actually in graduate school. So it was like, what is it? Hey girl, hey black girl, one more degree is not going to make you whole. And I was literally in graduate school trying to get whole. And I was like, well, I done spent the money already. Let me keep going. But I'm like, and I messaged one of my friends and I said, hey, if and when I finish this degree, I need you to hold me accountable to not get a PhD immediately.
Yeah, I get
I,
that.
I was like, remind me of this moment when I said a master's is enough for now.
Mm,
Is enough. One day, I do think I want to get my doctorate. I think,
yeah,
maybe when Little is a little bit older,
mm,
like when they go to college and I can go, like, whatever that looks like,
yeah,
right? Because I think that's something that I do want. Like, Dr.
yeah,
Cooper just sounds so good, But I don't have to do it immediately. I have other things that I can emphasize that will bring me fulfillment. And you got to have people in your life to remind you of that. But yeah, we do try to keep going and just keep going and keep achieving, because one day we will feel better about our achievements. And the
yeah,
reality is that isn't true. I mean, that just is a lie that we're told. So
yeah,
there's some statistics that also that I just like, I have to drop in here.
yeah.
So
Please.
when we talk about like overrepresentation of the global majority in burnout, 35% of women of color in leadership roles report higher levels of burnout than their white woman peers.
Mm,
35%. So over like a third of women who are in these leadership roles,
over.
right? Women leaders in general are 43% more burnt out than men at 31%. So 31% of men are burnt out at leadership roles, but 43, almost half. That's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
and it definitely shows that there's a gender issue within burnout.
Yes. And then inclusive cultures or inclusive environments reduce burnout because people are seen and understood, and they know that their value is not in their work, but their work has value.
Yeah.
Go
Oh, sorry.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say like, and like in inclusive environments too, like you're like, because women I think get a lot of hidden work at work, a lot of like things that like even if you're in a leadership level, you might get a lot of office tasks like that just come onto your desk. And I also think in more inclusive environments, there's more of an awareness of these hidden workloads. They try to put more equity within workload distribution. Like inclusivity, I think sometimes we just think about it as a word, not you, the world
Wait,
broadly. Like
yeah.
there's a structural process that we can bring in that helps alleviate some of the inequality of workload that comes through systemic like disenfranchisement of women. And when we can talk about this in the workplace, we make sure women have safe, fair workloads that you don't drive burnout to. You know?
So, like, yeah. So, one example of that is who takes notes in the meeting. It seems small, right? It
And
seems
not small.
tiny to say who's going to take the notes in the meeting. And typically it is a woman because they're more organized and whatever that looks like. Okay, cool, cool. Except for the notes in the meeting are not just the notes in the meeting. The notes in the meeting, then the recap of the meeting, the making sure people have their tasks that they are going to do, then who is owning making sure these people know the tasks and the dates and the deadlines that go along with that, right? Following up the next meeting to say this is what we talked about. That
Mhm.
is in and of itself is a job.
Yes, it's project management or executive assistant project management. And I can relate because my role has a lot of those aspects. And it is true, it's fatiguing in a particular way. And something that I've written a newsletter on about Black women at work, and I titled it like I feel like the help at work. And so many Black women, no matter what the level of their position, they can be put into this almost like nanny type, mammy type
Mammy,
role.
yep.
Yeah, like it's really yeah, it's insidious. And I just appreciate us talking about this because I think it's not talked about enough as like a burnout driver, you know. And
Yeah.
something that I really want folks to hear as you really talk about burnout is like do not internalize what is environmental as like a personal failing because it's not, you know.
It is. And I think we just have this rugged individualism that if I am just better, fill in the blank of whatever you think better is, then I won't feel this way. Unfortunately, that is not always the case. And I think I don't want it to be all doom and gloom either, because I think part of why I'm so drawn to just like our work together and like the idea of what burnout is and educating around work life rhythm is because it is structural. And if we do not call attention to the challenges that come from the lack of infrastructure, women, I mean, women are hurting. Black women are not fulfilling the best thing. And I think this is why we've got so many Black people, Black women in particular, who are like, I want to lean into the soft life, but I don't want people to lean into the soft life as a means to lean further into patriarchy, right? No one is coming to save you. There is no prince or princess charming. Like, you have to save yourself,
Yes.
period. Right. And so I think that's the hard part that we're living in right now, is this like, if I just it goes back to the original, if I am just better at this and let someone do these things for me and have soft life for me. I want women to have the soft life that they create, not a soft life
Mm.
that they have to wait for someone to give to them.
Yeah, that they have to outsource that journey. They
Yeah.
can actually cultivate it internally. I mean, that's something like I have been. Cass talked about her previous experience of burnout, and I've, as I mentioned, currently burned out. And even it is real that no one like you don't want to outsource that experience. And I do find that like healthy non-romantic community is a really helpful place for me to rejuvenate and be pointed back to myself and be reminded of my worth outside of work. And so I think like there is a community aspect to combating burnout, but we don't want to, like you said, outsource our sense of nervous system regulation, our sense of belief that our life can be soft to like this idea of like someone coming down from the sky to
Yeah.
rescue us from the experience. But I do think community is a part of that healing. And like for me, and maybe we can move towards like what our sacred descent is around this, or like how.
Yeah, let's do it. I love that question so
No,
much. I didn't
thank
think about it before we started talking, so you go first. But
you. Yeah, of course, of
I
course.
think it is like, what I want to double click though on what you said about community, because I
Yeah.
think so many of us don't really either know how to get that community outside of church context.
Hmm.
And so, because that's part of the reason why I went back to church, right? I
Hmm.
went back to church because I had people who I thought were my friends, but I didn't have like a space where I was like known. And growing up, that's the only place that I knew to get that. And so, what are some ways that, like, or where do you find community as a grown up? Like,
Yeah.
that's maybe is church or isn't church, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I think but I am lucky to live in the Bay Area where I went to college. So I just have a lot of like just college friends around and stuff. But I also really believe in going to like local events and being part of collectives. So for example, last year I joined a queer collective that my friends had created called The Table. And like we put on events around the Bay Area and like brought people together. And like that was one way I made friends, is by like opening up by being part of that collective. I actually have started opening up my house for hosting more. So like I'll invite my friends and tell them to invite a friend. And that's one way I built community too, is like putting myself out there. Like part of, I do think adults like, there's this fear that like once you pass 25 and like you're out of college or grad school, like you can't find it, but it's actually you have to build it. And I built a lot of confidence putting myself out there. Or like if I meet somebody that's really chill, even if I'm at a cafe working alone and they're really cool, I'll be like, you seem great. Like, do you want to get coffee again or hang out? Like I have started shooting my friendship shots a lot more. I also recently started going to a local dance studio in my area and like taking bachata classes. And so there is something to like going to classes, with community. A lot of my friends also do yoga and Pilates classes, and they build community there. And I'm a gardener, so there's like community garden events that I go to,
Yeah.
hiking communities I'll join. So really it's tapping into local community. And if you're in a major city, there's so much. So there's queer kickball in the park. Come go walk this trail and I'll teach you how to photograph. Like there's so many different just random communities. And so I really say for adults, like it's putting yourself out there and like giving community a try. And
Yeah.
there's definitely so many places outside of church. But I do think for a lot of adults, it's a confidence thing of like not wanting to put themselves out there again and not wanting to try. But I've built great friendships in my 30s. I met you around the time I was turning 30. So I've built a lot of great new friendships in this time.
I think too, what it sounds like, you lean into your hobbies and things that bring you joy, and then find other people who also have that same joy.
Yes, yes, exactly. And last thing I'll say too is making content. I've built so many. I probably have at least 5 people in my life just from TikTok itself that are like genuinely
I
phenomenal.
mean, you met your bae on
I,
for through your TikTok.
I met my bae. I met you. I met one of my other good friends, Teresa. There's so many people. I can't even list them all right now. I've met so many great friends through content.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. I was talking to Noelle the other day. She has like a really big DEI page, and she was so cool. Like I just been able to connect with a lot of folks. So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm telling you, putting myself out there. My mom always says, if you build it, they will come. And I think friendship is the same way. Like if you build community, you build connection, like people are going to want to come back to that as well, because our number one global public health crisis right now is loneliness. People want,
yeah.
you know,
I think what I also hear you saying is the need for bravery. And I think if we could reframe the strong Black woman to like a brave Black woman, would
mm,
be so cool. To me, strong is more of like a rock, right? Whereas like brave is more of like a sponge. You get to go out and take all these things in and experience them because you had this bravery.
mm,
And it's not just for other people, it's for yourself.
mm.
Think the things that people can walk away with, we've talked about, is being able to say no, setting healthy boundaries, taking ownership of your own soul work, understanding structural challenges and not individual failings, finding hobbies, and being brave enough to build a community that you want. Which
100%.
goes back to the number one thing of it's okay if people that are things that were handed to you structurally, you start to say no to.
I was just going to say also like embracing letting things fall off your plate that can. Because sometimes, even I've seen this with my mom, like when she usually burned out when I was younger, it would be this idea of like, no one can handle this but me, because I've had to do it alone so long. But other people can take that on. Or if you don't make my lunch every day, I'm 15 now, I can make my school lunch or put that on my, take some things off that plate. And I think for me, like running my business and then working full time, I wanted to keep everything 100%. And that just wasn't realistic. I had to let something fall.
Yeah.
And I do think burnout also requires us to have some grief resilience, to let things change and listen to our bodies, because there was a time when I could do it all a little bit easier. And then now my body has changed a bit and that's more fatiguing. So I've had to adjust to what my body is telling me now and
Yeah.
not try to get back to where Ciarra was before. I think we can kind of be like, well, I've done this, so I always should be able to do it. But it's being responsive and, like you're saying, open to change and transition as a way to, try to combat your own burnout and address your own fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing I landed on in my talk is that like we have to pay attention to structural challenges that make certain folks in our communities more susceptible to burning out.
Yeah.
Realizing that some people generally are not experiencing burnout because other people are.
Come on. That's a word. Wow.
And if we're not addressing that, what are we doing? How are we building the life that can be in this time with all the stuff that we've got going on globally and politically and socially? We have to rethink what revolutionary work looks like. And a lot of the revolution to me happens between your ears, not necessarily outside of you, because that is what truly drives behavior. Is what
Mhm.
happens in your brain and in your body and in your soul. It's not just about, it is a lot about policy and politics, but if we're not really taking time to decolonize and deconstruct, then the revolution and changes in policy will not be sustainable because we haven't changed anything about ourselves and about the way that we function in community.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made me think about how, like, you can't, although we've talked about some things individuals can do, it is true. Like it's both a structural and individual process. I don't think that people can, for example, like if you're in a terrible work environment, I don't know if all the things are going to maybe combat that sense of burnout because the structure is not good. So it does make me think about that as well. But yeah, just giving me a lot to reflect on and
Yeah.
think about how to combat my own burnout. As we do a segment on here called Sacred Descent, which is just how we think about how we are dissenting from a way of being maybe that's like normative and infusing our own way of being that's more healthy for ourselves and our bodies and maybe more responsive to the identities we carry as Black women and Black queer women and all that. So I'm curious for you with burnout, like maybe like what is your sacred descent? Is it like every Friday I go out to my favorite restaurant, every Tuesday I see my bestie? Like what does it look like?
Yeah. So I'm not going to lie, like this week has been a hard week. And so I'm not sure that I'm in the best place. But I will tell you, I had a very long conversation with my lifelong platonic love. And one of the gems that she dropped on me was it doesn't do any good to create an environment where you can rest if you feel guilty about resting later.
I wish we
And
had.
I was like, shut up, because I feel like I do a good job of, okay, this Friday, I'm doing absolutely nothing. I'm ordering pizza. I'm sitting in the bed. I'm, gonna watch TV, catch up on my shows. But then the next day I'm like, oh gosh, I really should have used that time to work.
Mhm.
And I think that is my sacred descent right now, is continuing to create the space in my life where I can have nothing and have freedom, but also not feeling guilty after.
Mhm.
That is that's what I need to be working on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause if you're guilty while you're resting, then you're not really even just.
The rest.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I'll fill time when I could just be laying down. And lately, even before I started this job, I could not relax. But I wish I had, because I had 4 weeks from the offer to starting, and I could have just relaxed in that, but then I couldn't. And I think for me, at least one reason that I feel guilt when I'm resting is because there's this lack of belief that I can rest on the good things that are happening. Well, what if the good things go? I need to make sure I'm already prepared for that. So I think there's some lack of trust of the universe and divinity. I think I try to hustle to outwork uncertainty. Like
Ooh,
it's not the human condition, So
hustle to outwork uncertainty.
yeah, I know I do that. Like,
Oof.
the part of being human is being uncertain, but I can create certainty if I work hard enough, versus surrendering to the experience of being uncertain and experiencing the mystery of life. For me, like, sort of center on burnout lately has been like full playtime. Like I said, like going to classes. Like I decided I'm going to build a new garden in my backyard, so I'm going to go to Home Depot and get a garden plot and build that, and like getting into the earth, doing physical tasks that have nothing to do with like work-based productivity has done a lot for my well-being. And when I was younger, like, especially high school and college, fun gets kind of built in, whether it's like field trips or things with friends or parties. And I'm learning now I have to build my own joy, I have to manufacture it. And through like playtime is how I've been doing that. Even just going out and shooting some hoops in my local area or something, getting into the body, getting into play, and getting out of work mode has been really helpful.
I think that's so good.
Yeah, that's what it said at the end.
So we went through the key
I
takeaways.
like this the exit it has.
Okay, let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
let's record. I'm gonna mark it so that I can come back to it later. So that comes to the end of our time. I'm always right here with you, Ciarra. I feel like being in community with you is one of the biggest joys, and I'm really excited that we are able to bring this to other folks who are figuring it out, who are fumbling sometimes. I hope that everybody got a little something out of it.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, Cass, you shared so much. It was so great to hear about your presentation, the work you're doing, and the expertise you bring to this topic. So thank you. I learned so much from you today. And our friendship is one of the favorite things in my life, one of my favorite things ever. And we're an example of becoming friends like as adults, and what you can cultivate in these new times in your life. So I hope you all remember you can reach out, you can build community and build connection even now. And we hope you'll send this episode to your homie, to your therapist, to your coworker, to whoever needs a little more information on burnout and addressing fatigue around this.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I would say is, don't forget to check on your strong friend. And sometimes you are the strong friend to yourself. So check on yourself.
Check in with yourself, build in some more, fun, build in some more time to relax, build in some time to connect with yourself guilt-free. And we appreciate you all. We're right there with you, and we'll see you next time.
If today's conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more people find this space of exploration and connection.
And if you want to go deeper, support us on Patreon. Your membership helps us keep these conversations going, and it gives you access to exclusive content.
Because this isn't just a podcast, it's a community. And no matter where you are on your journey, we're right there with you.